Turning your hobby into a career is a dream that thousands of people have. Very few people are actually able to do it. I count myself as one of the lucky and blessed ones that have been able to turn my childhood hobby as a magician into a full-blown career as a stage mentalist, traveling the country, performing for amazing company parties. And I want to talk to you about what I did to turn that hobby into a career. So in this video, we're going to break it down into 3 sections. The first one is exactly the steps that I took to turn my childhood hobby of magic shows into a full-blown career. The next section is going to be how you can do the same in your own life, how the steps can translate to any other hobby or career. And then finally, the third part is going to be why this might actually be a bad idea, why the idea of follow your heart, follow your dreams is terrible advice. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little bit of background as to my story. So I got into magic right after being pulled out of school to become homeschooled when I was 12 years old. I had terrible anxiety when I was in school. They wanted me prescribed medication and therapy. And my mother said, no, I don't think it's something medication can fix. I think it's something that a change of environment can fix. And because she had a master's in education, she was able to see that no, public education, public school wasn't the best fit for me, and she was able to design her own curriculum for me at home. So 12 years old, I had this whole new world of freedom, being away from school, being away from this anxiety that had plagued me for my whole life, and all of a sudden just having more time on my hands after my schoolwork was done for the day. That's when I really picked up magic. I got a magic kit. I learned a few tricks. I loved it. I fell in love with it right away. There was a magic shop right near my house. I was able to spend time there, eventually getting a job there as a teenager. Mentoring under the professional magicians in that shop that helped me develop a birthday party show that I could then do around my area as a 15, 16, 17-year-old. I loved it. But so far, this was just a hobby. This was a way to make a few extra $100, making actually a lot of money as a teenager, much better than working at Dunkin's or Starbucks, but it wasn't a full-blown career. It would be very difficult to save for retirement, to pay for health insurance, to buy a car, to buy a house with that type of hobby. And that's the mindset that I had going into college. I was able to start at UMass Boston a little bit early. I received my Master's of Business Administration because I really thought that even though I wanted to do magic full-time, it wouldn't be a career worth pursuing. And so I got my degree and I went out into the workforce. Now, eventually, I did make the decision that I wanted to try it. I was working traditional jobs for a few months. I said, you know what? I have this nagging feeling that I need to try this, that I'm just not going to be satisfied in my career, whatever career that might be, without at least giving this a shot. And so I quit my job shortly after getting it. Like I said, I was only in that world for a few months. And I launched my career as a full-time magician with the understanding that this probably won't work out. However, I just needed to scratch that itch. If I crashed and burned and ended up back in the 9-to-5 workforce, that would have been totally fine because then I could have this weight off my shoulders. So that's what I did. That was really how I turned my career into my hobby into a career, was I just took the leap and I did it. Now, that career wouldn't have lasted very long, because, well, I didn't know how to actually turn it into a full-blown career. That was the problem that I faced. I knew how to get a few gigs here and there and make a few $100s, but to make the money necessary to support one's living on it, to make to get the gigs necessary to fill up your calendar, that was a whole nother skill set that I didn't even have. So my solution to this was to find other magicians that had done it before me. Thankfully, because I was just so entrenched in the world of magic for, at this point, over a decade, even though I was brand new at starting a career, I wasn't new to the networking of magicians. And I was very fortunate to be able to reach out to very successful professional magicians who had been doing it for decades and who make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in magic. And I was able to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm just starting along this journey. how do I do this? And they were able to help me get from where I am as what was essentially still a hobbyist and turn it into a full-blown career. Now, what that entailed for myself was creating systems that allowed me to take small steps, small, measurable, and achievable steps every day towards a larger outcome. Whereas every day, I might not notice very much improvement, but as the weeks, months, and years go by, it would create a world of difference. We can get into that a little bit later. So that is what they did to help me leapfrog from where I was to where I wanted to be. So how exactly did I make this leap? Did I turn my hobby into a career? And how can you do the same as well? Well, the problem that I faced and that a lot of other people face when they are doing this is that they don't have a plan. They have wishes. They have a desire. They say, I want to be a professional magician. I want to be a professional comedian. I want to be a professional whatever. And this is great, but it's a wish. It's not a plan. It's nothing you can measure. It's nothing you can extrapolate out over time. And so that's really the very first step that you have to do if you want to make this a career, is to have some sort of concrete plan. You need a plan that you can then build systems around. So my plan, my goal, for example, when I first started was I want to make $50,000 a year. Now that's, a lot of money for some people. Where I live in what I wanted to do, it wasn't going to be a ton of money. It wasn't going to be the end result. But that was going to be a starting point, knowing if I can make 50, that's a career. That's a legitimate career for a lot of people, and that would tell me I'm on the right path. Magic isn't just some sort of wishful dream, it's something that I can make into a living. And then once I hit that goal, I set the goal a little bit higher and then a little bit higher, the financial goal, because I work really well with having a solid number that I need to hit. And that's something that's very measurable as well. At the end of the year, did I hit the number that I wanted to hit, or did I miss it? That's very easy to measure. It's very concrete. It's not a wishful dream. So I would encourage you, first and foremost, is to just have your goal set in stone. What is the goal that you want? And the goal that you want for your career based around your hobby might not be exactly what you think it is. And for example, a lot of magicians that I talk to, they love performing magic. They don't care about the money. They are totally fine with taking a pay cut and making less money to do a show. They just want to perform magic. Now, that would be their goal. It wouldn't be money. It would be, I just want to perform the type of magic that I love. The problem with being a professional magician is that you don't always get to perform the type of magic that you love. In fact, I would say very rarely am I ever in a setting where everything is 100% what I want it to be, and I get to do exactly the type of magic tricks that I want to do. No, I'm usually having to adjust my repertoire to fit the client's needs. I'm having to perform in locations and situations that I don't love. Maybe in a backyard at a 4th of July barbecue where it's 90 degrees and humid. I seem to do that every year. Or maybe in a restaurant that really isn't conducive to being a magician, but they want it and the check already cleared, so I have to perform for 2 hours in this environment. And it's not fun. At that point, it's a job. Now, because it's my job and I look at it as a job, I am of course gonna show up and do the best job that I can. But if your goal as a magician is to just perform magic, well, maybe being a professional isn't the right choice for you. Same thing with comedians, with musicians, with Pokemon card collectors, with Call of Duty players, whatever your hobby is that you want to turn into a career, dive deep into your goal, into your why, and ask yourself, what is it that I really want with this? What is the real true goal? What is the measure of success that when I do this thing, I'm gonna know that this is a successful venture? Now, if you find yourself with a goal that, can be better accomplished without making the leap into doing this as a career, then there you go. You don't have to navigate this incredibly complicated and stressful field. You are better off for it. I would say just forget about doing it as a career, keep your day job, and stay the course. Now, you might, though, find yourself with a goal That does require you to do this as a career. You need more time, more effort, more money. So if you find yourself with the type of goal that can only be accomplished by launching a full-time career, great. Now you know you are on the right path. So once you've launched that career and you are you're trying to figure out how to actually make a living with this stuff, which, by the way, I recommend trying to figure that out before you launch the career. You should definitely have a little bit of money in the bank and some leads in the pipeline, and whatever your metric for making money is with this, you should already have that ball rolling before you launch a full-time career. So many people make the mistake of quitting their day job, jumping into a brand new career that they really know nothing about, and all of a sudden falling flat on their face because they just made a bad decision, and then they blame this bad decision on the career itself, saying that this is a lousy career and they should have never done this. Well, half of that's true. They should have never made that jump, at least without doing the proper homework beforehand. But you have a goal right now in place. You have a goal that can only be accomplished by launching a full-time career, turning this into a full-time career. What you need to do is to figure out the exact metrics for your success. What does cash in your bank account look like from your hobby? For me, as a magician, it's leads. I need people to go to my website, to book me for a show, and for me to show up and do the show. That is what money looks like for me. For you, maybe your hobby involves streaming. Maybe it involves social media. Maybe it involves not so much leads, but it involves viewership to your page, to your channel, and ad revenue that you get from that. Maybe down the road, there would be leads as well, selling courses, selling exclusive content. But for now, your metric would be just getting as many eyeballs to your page as possible. That's very important to nail down. And I have a feeling that if this is a hobby that you love, and if you've been doing this for long enough to want to turn it into a career, you probably know what that metric is. What you need to do then is optimize every single part of your system for that thing. It is so important early on to make as much money as possible, to put all of your effort into making as much money as you can. Because you're not gonna make a ton of money, but you're gonna be fighting a very uphill battle. And you are gonna have to put in 5x the amount of work that a professional with 20 years of experience ahead of you has to put in order to make that first 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever number you have in mind. You're gonna have to put in a ton of uphill work for that. Once you get there, then things change a little bit. Then you can start looking at different ways of acquiring leads, polishing up different parts of your system, all that fun stuff. But in the very beginning, you need to focus just on getting leads, getting views, whatever that action is that ultimately gets you money in your bank account, because that money is gonna be the thing that keeps you afloat. You also want to make sure, because we're talking about hobbies, and well, there's more often than not, there is a skill associated with hobbies. You want to make sure you are the absolute best in your price range that you can be, in your price range and in your market. If you are performing or catering to a national audience or an international audience, this is gonna be really tough. But if you are somehow able to niche yourself down to just one area, I am gonna just be a magician doing birthday party shows in New York City for $200 to $500. That is an insanely niche market. And within that market, I can become the best that's available, because magicians who are better are not going to be charging $500 in New York City. They're going to be charging a lot more money. So if I can have a show that approaches that quality, a $1,000 quality, but offer that for $300, and if I can launch my career as a magician with that type of show in that market with the appropriate marketing, it's going to be very easy to fill up my calendar with work. And this work isn't going to be $1,000 leads. They're going to be $300 leads, which in the magic community, and especially in a city like New York City, it's a very modest lead. That's a good starting point. So you can swap out these numbers and these terms with whatever works out for your own profession. Now, if you don't know what a good starting place is for you, maybe you're a comedian and you want to do comedy full-time. Great. Maybe you don't know, though, how to swap out the examples that I'm giving for real-world examples in your market. What does a brand new comedian get paid to appear on a show? What does a show look like? Is it a 5-minute set on someone else's show, or should you be expected to book out a venue and sell tickets and put on an hour-long special? I don't know. I can't answer that. But you know who can answer that are comedians who have been doing this for 10, 20 plus years in your area. This is probably the single greatest thing you can do if you want to turn your hobby into a career. You are going to seek out full-time professionals that have been where you are, that have struggled uphill, that have failed again and again, but gotten back up each time, and have now made a very comfortable living for themselves doing what they love. They know they're way over here at point Z and you're over here at point A. They know exactly what you are going through and exactly what you are going to need to do in order to make this a career. In fact, they had to learn the hard way. They had to stumble and fall. They had to quote, not enough money in some gigs and too much money at other gigs. They had to go through really bad experiments with marketing, just throwing money away at advertisements and strategies that didn't end up panning out. But they learned, and you don't have to do any of that. You are going to have to pay a debt. You have a debt to pay if you want to become a professional. You're either going to pay that debt with time or with money. Now, if you want to pay it with time, that's great. It's going to take you 15 or 20 or 30 years to pay that off. And you're going to get there, but you're going to have to still pay it off with time. If you want to pay it off with money, you hire a consultant from someone who has already done it. And you might pay a few $1,000s. Like, it's not cheap, but it's extremely cheap when you look at it as hiring a professional to sit down with you and help you map out your journey. You are going to save 15 years of time. You are going to be able to pay off that debt that is necessary in order to become a professional much, much faster. And the more you do this, the faster you are going to be able to fly ahead in your career. All of a sudden, 3, 5 years down the road, people are looking at you and saying, I had no idea that, such and such hobby could end up being a career. And again, maybe you're even in love with Pokemon cards. I have no idea what a career around Pokemon cards would look like. I'm just spitballing this idea right now, but I am sure that there is someone out there who's making a full-time living with Pokemon cards. And if you could afford an hour of their time to sit down on Zoom, they could tell you exactly what you need to do. It might be a terrible idea. It might be just something that has worked for them in their unique circumstance, and it's not going to work for you because you're two different people living two different lives. But I bet there is that person there that could help you out. More likely than not, though, you have a hobby that realistically could be turned into a career. The best thing to do is to find someone to help you out. Now, once you have this information and you have this goal in mind and you know what you want to do and you know what success looks like, you need to create daily systems. This is going to be the thing that sets you apart in the long run from the folks who make this into a full-time career and from the folks who drop out, who fail at this, as most people do, and who go back to their day jobs. These daily steps, these daily routines are going to be small, measurable, and achievable tasks that you can do every single day that move you closer towards your goal. For me, part of that involves working on my show. I want to become a better magician. Part of that involves nurturing leads. I have different mechanisms out there in the world that helps get me leads, some of them from paid ads, some of them from organic, some of them from search. I also jump on the phone with everybody. Every lead that comes in, I want to jump on the phone, thank them for reaching out to me, and see if I can actually be of help to them. So those are small steps that I can take every day. They only take a few hours each to accomplish. And over time, it helps me build a really comfortable career, a really good career, and ultimately doing more and more gigs that I like to do. For you, it might be a little bit different, but you need to come up with this system, rising every day at roughly the same time, falling into the same routine, but having these steps that you do every single day, working on your craft, working on that one specific thing that gets you money in your bank account, getting leads, getting views, whatever that is. Probably marketing is going to be a big part of it. You should be spending a little time every day on marketing. There's outbound and inbound and cold and warm, and it's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, but you are going to have to learn that, and you are going to have to create a system around that every single day as well. You're going to have to integrate that into your system. When you have some sort of system in place, it's not going to be perfect. Most likely you are going to have to adjust it as you go along. That's okay. It's much better to have some system in place to walk you through the steps towards mastery of your goal that you can then improve down the road, as opposed to trying to create the best possible system for yourself and getting stuck in analysis paralysis and eventually not doing anything because you're not able to get your mind out of the spreadsheet. You can't just hop into the real world, get your hands dirty, make some mistakes, get back up, and learn from what you've done. That is the best thing you can do. So create this system. It will guide you towards mastery in your goal, and ultimately, this is going to lead to a successful career with your hobby. So far, we have covered my journey to turning my hobby into a career and some steps that you could take to doing the same for yourself. But before I leave you today, I do want to touch on one more small thing, and that is the idea that following your dreams is terrible advice. Now, we hear this so many times that the best career for you is what your heart desires. Just follow your dreams and everything's going to work out. And that's not the case. That's very rarely the case. As I've explained before, sometimes, I'd say more often than not actually, the best choice of action for you is not going to be quitting your job and going in a full-time career. The best choice is going to be doing your hobby and doing it more and more, but not necessarily taking the leap. Now, for myself, I perform magic much more than I would if I worked a 9-to-5 job, but it's not as fun of a hobby. And I'll admit that I had much more fun with magic as a hobby 10 years ago than I do right now, and that's okay. I was okay with making that trade-off because I do love performing and I do love the idea of working for myself, and I get to work with some amazing people. Not every hobby, though, is the same, and not every person is as positioned to make the full-time leap as someone else is. Now, we're tempted when we see videos of people living their dreams with their hobbies. We're tempted to look at that and say, why can't I do that? I'm sitting in my cubicle, hour 5 of 8 that I have to sit here, and well, here's someone on my phone who's living an amazing life. Why can't I do that? Well, what you're seeing in the phone is probably not real, or not as real as they make it out to be. The more sensationalized it looks, the more views that this creator gets and the more money they get. That's how they're making their career. It's a process of editing and marketing and trying to sell this idea and this image that, well, just isn't true. Now, for sure, there are some creators out there that do live the life that they present to. Yes, absolutely. But those are the minority. Those are the outliers. And I think it's very dangerous for regular people like you and me to picture ourselves as being one of these outliers. That's not the case. We probably aren't. And it would be very dangerous for you to destroy an otherwise great career or great education because you want to live this life, the life that you're seeing in your feed, in your For You page. That's very dangerous. The heart, it's a great thing, but it can be deceiving. Things that make you feel good and things that appear to be good and things that look fun when other people do them are not always healthy. You can think of plenty of examples of that, of substances and bad habits that fall into this category. And honestly, chasing your dreams to become a professional artist or performer, they do share a lot of similarities with this category. There's a lot of hardship that doesn't get featured as much as the shiny, pretty fun of being a full-time artist or performer. And it can be dangerous for you to launch a career without realizing what the reality is, which is why I'm saying the most important thing you can do is to just talk with someone who's been there, someone who is just a regular person who has had success in their career, in their hobby as a career, and who can show you what is the good stuff, what is the fun stuff that you can look forward to, and what is the not so fun stuff. You know, what is the work involved that you are gonna have to go through, even though you don't like it. If you can do that, and if you can disillusion yourself to the beautiful fairy tale picture that social media has created for you about what your hobby should look like as a career, well, then you're much better off. You're in a much better position to actually do this thing. So to turn your hobby into a career is not impossible whatsoever. It can be very difficult though. In fact, it can be extremely difficult, and it can be challenging if you don't recognize these difficulties before you go into it. You can make some bad decisions by quitting your job, dropping your education in pursuit of this dream that looks great on social media, but isn't quite true. So in conclusion, I would encourage you to, number one, define what your goal is. What exactly is the reason why you want to quit your job and turn your hobby into a career? Maybe you just hate your job. Maybe you just need a new job. Like, that would be a very easy answer to this question that could save so many headaches. But maybe you do, like myself. I had a scratch that I had to itch. I had to just try out my hobby as a career. And even if I failed, I needed to just know that I did that. So figure out what your actual goal is. Seek out people who have done it before, who can guide you along the way. Even if you have to pay some money to hire them for an hour of their time, do it, because you have a debt that you have to pay down. You're either gonna pay it down with your own blood, sweat, tears, and money over the course of 15 or 20 years, or you're gonna pay it down by hiring somebody who's done it before, and well, they can show you exactly what you need to do. Once you've done that, you want to put a system in place. This is your predictable mastery system, the system that is going to make sure you have success in your chosen field down the road. The small, achievable, measurable steps that you can do every single day to move you closer and closer towards that success. And finally, don't let your heart deceive you. The heart is very deceiving. It's not a very good compass to follow. And the advice of follow your dreams is generally terrible advice. So make sure that your goal that you have isn't just a simple wish for wanting to do your art as a career. And it's not just a desire to get away from your job. It's a specific goal that is aligned with the reality and the stresses of doing this as your full-time career.